as chair for this meeting.
Second.
Do we need a vote on that?
Yeah, we should.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, I will be the temporary chair. So that takes us to approval of the resolution permitting certain expenditures to be made within a 1/2 mile radius of tax increment district number 16. And Alan, do you have an explanation or?
Yes, as part of the packet, you should have a map that shows where TIF 16 is located. Just for everybody to recall, that's the 100 block TIF that the city did several years ago. That's in a relatively good location when it comes to downtown central city businesses. And what we're looking at doing is using some of the available TIF value, cash balance in that TIF that has not closed out yet. It's still several years away from closing out, but we think we have a little available cash balance to put towards a pot that we could include with Greater Oshkosh EDC's revolving loan fund program. So the idea would be that this would still be loan funds at a very attractive rates for the businesses to keep them afloat. But it wouldn't be a grant program. Now, I can't promise we're going to get everything repaid back. So that is a risk that we're taking with this funding. But at this point in time, we're looking for anything we could help keep businesses open and operating and their payrolls paid and their rent and mortgage and lights on. Since many of them in our central city have had to close due to the governor's emergency orders. So that was the precipitating point, and at this point we've talked to Greater Oshkosh EDC to administer these funds in the same fashion they do the revolving loan funds they already administer for the city, and they put together a COVID-19 emergency loan program package that they just rolled out in the last few days. The city's already contributed $250,000 to that fund, and we're looking at potentially contributing another $250,000 out of these funds for that program.
The county's also contributed $750,000, but there's a clause that no more than 40% of that can be loaned within the city limits. So how much is the overfunding in this district? Because that's what the tax entities in effect are giving up, is that would have been paid out if the district
Yes.
closed.
At this point in time, TIF 16 has about $800,000 in cash, but there's still debt to be repaid on that. When we would close this out in 2028, we were thinking we'd have about 1.4 million in 2028. So there's 800,000 now. It'll grow as time goes by. So we're only asking for not the 1.4, but just a share of the 813 right now. I was thinking it would be $250,000. If you want to put a different cap on it or leave it uncapped, that would be up to the Joint Review Board as to what we'd be doing with the available capacity.
There's a resolution in the packet. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
So move.
I will second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The resolution is passed.
Barb, we'll have to get your signature later on,
Okay,
but we'll have
I'll be
Kelly.
happy to do that. I can come down later this afternoon if that works. I have another phone meeting at 1:30. That should be done by 2:30. I could come down after that if that'll work.
I would call Kelly's office. Kelly, your
Okay.
number?
Yep, Barb, just feel free to call 236-5055, and then we can, we'll arrange to meet you to sign that.
Okay, that's good, Kelly. Okay, that was 236-5055.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right.
The next item on the agenda is discussion, possible tax increment district amendment to TID number 14 and number 19 for donation to TID number 16.
Yes, we have no good sense as to how far city funds or county funds will last. We don't know how long this emergency order will last, so we're looking at ways at extending this potentially. So this would be like Plan B and C. TID 14 and TID 19 are existing TIDs that have some cash balance in them. TID 14 is the Mercy Medical Center Complex over on Hazel. That has a PAYGO TIF, so it has its life ahead of it until 2027. It's got about $1.1 million in it, and we know we have PAYGO payments to make, but we think we can maybe take a little of the funding out of 14 and donate that to 16, and then that can be spent in the central part of the city again. So that would be Mercy. And then 19 is our Northwest Industrial Park. That has some public infrastructure still to pay off, but they have until 2028 to do that. There's only $500,000 in that account, but we do expect, based on values today, that by the time it will be terminated in 2028, it'll have over $2 million. That's assuming the value continues to stay where it is. So that's why those two TIFs in particular that had some cash value of $500,000 to $1 million that didn't need the money immediately and still had several years before they were terminating. So we thought these would be the safest TIF districts to get donations from. So we just wanted to highlight that the taxing jurisdictions and say we're looking at that. And at this point in time, we're going to be working with our financial consultants to kind of put together a financial projection. And at some point, we might come back to do that. We wanted to know if that would be something, what kind of concerns you might have regarding that approach.
Do any of these districts include the Menominee Nation Arena?
No, that's a separate TIF district.
Okay.
That one is a PAYGO that there would be no cash balance available, so I would never, that's a TIF district that would not be a good candidate for making a donation.
And if
Okay,
you
I
look,
just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Yep.
and I think another follow-up point to that, Barb, because if you look at the map for the extension of TIF 16, it does not reach
The arena.
it does not reach the arena. It reaches the parking lot, but that's
That's
it.
what I was thinking as I'm looking at the map in front of me, but I just wanted to be sure about that, so
Yeah.
thank you.
It doesn't reach anything other than that, but the idea is to put some money into that fund. Alan, we were discussing this the other day, and I think with TIF 14, which is around Mercy, if we had done a half mile off of there really isn't any business area that would benefit a great deal. But when we talked about 19, which is on the northwest side, are there any businesses there that might?
There's a few businesses there, and that's part of the analysis as to what potentially would we want to keep in 19 to potentially spend there versus what could be donated into 16 to be loaned in that area.
So Mark, you had mentioned how the county was going to be providing some funding for Oshkosh, which we greatly appreciate. That will give us a great deal of flexibility because that can be used anywhere in the city versus this TIF 16, which is going to be downtown. So I would envision that we would not use any county money in the downtown area because it's our most flexible. GoEDC has funds that are actually permitted beyond our city boundaries, which is also flexible, and the balance of your 450 could be used in areas outside the city limits, if I'm correct, or is that 300,000 for the city or for the greater Oshkosh area?
40% of 750 within the city limits, and 60% of the 750,000 anywhere else in the county,
Okay.
outside of those limits.
So if we have, like, Winneconne could benefit from the 450 pool. So we're trying to figure out the best way to maximize everything we have. We certainly understand how you want to make sure that you're being judicious in making that available. I don't want to use the word handout because these are all loans.
All loans.
But we're trying to maximize. So Alan, I guess it goes back to with TIF 19, we may or may not keep some of that money in TIF 19 and expand the plan to allow for this type of loan if that area can benefit from it.
And when we do our analysis, it might just be 19. We might actually come back and say, can we, just like we did with 16, can we expand the half mile around 19 and catch a lot more businesses? Because 19 in the Northwest is kind of a small area, but a half mile could include a lot more businesses in the city.
Yeah.
So we'll do that analysis before we bring it forward.
Well, and the considerations for the school district, the tech school, the city, and the county is that if a TIF closed when it's overfunded, those funds come out to those taxing entities in proportion to their relative levies. So we're giving up that money, but in turn, we're investing it, and probably at a time that might be a short-term crisis. So is a long-range benefit greater of reinvesting this money now than trying to get a payout at the end of the life of these TIFs that would be greater? And I would argue because of the current situation, this one's pretty clear.
Yeah, and the GoEDC committee for these funds, we're going to rely on them to help us with being the review body for that. And they've been pretty tight with their loans so far, and they're going to have to evaluate what standards they're going to have for this emergency use, because it's going to be this could be a lot riskier a loan than what even they're currently used to.
As an example, I don't believe hospitality or a restaurant or tavern are even eligible under the old RLF rules, but I believe they would be in the COVID-19 emergency fund.
And
So,
And when we passed our resolution, they talked about targeting the money to help people with rent and utility payments to keep businesses in a position where they can reopen when this crisis passes.
And
yes,
fixed costs, we're envisioning that fixed costs would also include some core personnel, because somebody's got to keep paying the bills and keeping the business in a position that they can resume regular operations upon, the end of the emergency. So we're being open-minded about what it's used for, but it's to keep them alive. And if we can help, that would be great. Barb, are you tracking everything?
Pretty much, yes, I am. Thank you for asking. Yes, I would support this proposal.
Okay, well, we have to come back with this, though, right, Alan? So we might
Yes.
have
Yeah, it's not listed as an agenda item, but the concept is, but discussion is, but not a resolution yet.
correct.
Well, fortunately, with the approval that we did do, now we have 800,000 to work with. So that gives us plenty of time for us to review these other possibilities that we can bring back.
And that'll have to go through the amendment process, so it'll be Joint Review Board, Plan Commission, Council, and Joint Review Board.
Yeah, it's just a little different, a plan amendment versus the
Half-mile radius.
half-mile radius. That's exclusively with us with this body. So is there anything else, Alan? Do you know? I'm trying to
No,
think of anything.
I'm glad to hear you're open to the idea of using 14 and 19 to help supplement the 16 funds. And you probably won't see anything on that for at least a month because we have to start doing the analysis and put together a plan, and then we'll send that to you and probably call upon this group for an actual Joint Review Board plan amendment process. That's all I have.
I guess then we need a proposal to adjourn and a quick vote on that.
I'll move to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? We are now adjourned. Thank you.